previous location.
That was Sarah Nielsen, a spokesperson for Utah's Office of Homeless Services, who notes the site now features bathrooms and washing machines. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average, down on the day 61 points. The NASDAQ has been down all day, and right now 215 points down. Our KSL weather, we have temperatures in the 80s, but overnight lows in the 50s. That's next. KSL News Time 101.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
When it comes to your electrical system, do you know the warning signs to look for? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and it's okay if you don't know, but here are a few things that you might not even realize could be a sign of a bigger problem. Wall plates that are hot to the touch, discoloration around switches or outlets, if you hear crackling or popping or buzzing around switches or outlets, a breaker that trips a lot, switches that feel loose when you operate them, if your lights dim or flicker when a major appliance comes on, if your plugs fall out of the wall easily. You know, you're not supposed to have to bend the prongs out on a plug just to get it to stay in the wall. If you notice any of these things, you should consider having a licensed electrician check your system out. If you don't know anyone, Any Hour Services has put together a radio-only special for any homeowners listening. One of our licensed electricians will perform a comprehensive electrical inspection and give you a full written report for only $29. But you have to mention this ad when you call. To schedule your comprehensive electrical inspection by a licensed electrician for only $29, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7300. That's 801-443-7300. Any Hour Services.
You've got a Pepto predicament, moviegoer.
Hey, I can hear your stomach grumbling.
Sorry, I ate that entire tub of popcorn with extra butter.
You overdid it, and now your movie has turned into a blockbuster bellyache. Undo it with Pepto.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Pepto Chewables provide fast 5-symptom relief, so you can focus on the action on the big screen instead of in your stomach. When you overdo it, undo it with Pepto. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
We have emergency traffic now brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Michelle Rowe.
A multi-vehicle crash northbound I-15 at 114 South, blocking the 4 right lanes. You will have to move over to the left to get around it. Backing up to Bangerter Highway. This is going up again to 114 South. And then eastbound I-80 at 40th West, we have a crash on the right. Celebrate Taco Tuesday the tasty way at Cafe Rio. Handmade tortillas bring the vibe. Slow braised meats bring the punch. And 12 tasty toppings bring the party. Starting at just $2.49. Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
Look for warm daytime temperatures for the rest of the week. Could set a record on Friday, but lows will drop into the 50s overnight and feel like fall. Right now, we're at 73 degrees with sunny skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the headlines today, of course, center on the ongoing story of Iran's missile attack into Israel. So far, we haven't heard reports of any deaths from these attacks, and that the Iron Dome has intercepted the missiles heading towards a wide range of Israeli citizens and cities. This is still very much a developing story, so stay with us. We've got you covered on all of this throughout the afternoon today. But let's get a little underneath the headlines in terms of what we know, what we don't, and what's likely to come next. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we've continued to watch this unfold today, of course, Iran unleashing a barrage of attacks, over 180 missiles that we know for sure that have been launched at Israel from various places and at various heights and levels and lengths of rockets, but with no deaths reported at this point. We are watching, and can we see that State Department? Do we have that up yet? Okay, we're still working on that. The State Department is just beginning their briefing. We'll go to that in just a moment. Let's start. Do we have that now? Oh, no. Oh. We do have CNN?
Unstable and uncertain.
Okay, we're going to go live to the State Department briefing now and listening to some of the questions from the reporters there in terms of what we've seen and what is happening there on the ground in Israel. Take a listen.
Sign up on a forum. Can you give us an update on the numbers of those and whether or not you're planning to, I don't know, to do anything in the way of either U.S. government capabilities or charter flights or ferries?
Sure. So you're right. As we often do in these situations, we have directed U.S. citizens who are in Lebanon to register with the State Department for information, and especially for information with how to depart Lebanon, and we're providing them whatever information we can. We have had, as of today, around 6,000 American citizens in Lebanon who have registered with us for further information. Should be clear, not all of those American citizens are seeking assistance with departing. People are just looking for information. They're looking for options. There are a number of American citizens who live in Lebanon who have lived there for years and do not want to depart the country. So in terms of the status on the ground, the airport is still open. Commercial flights are operating, although they are available at times at reduced capacity. We are working right now with airlines to provide additional flights with more seats for American citizens. It's something that we hope to turn on in the next few days, and we will be in touch with American citizens if and when we're able to expand that capability.
How do you ensure that there are going to be seats reserved for Americans?
Now, we're working with, I can't get into the details, but we're working with commercial carriers to ensure that capability. And when we have further information and we've locked this down, it's something we'll communicate directly with American citizens who've asked for information, and then I'll be happy to come and talk about it here at the briefing room.
Thanks.
Yeah, Jim.
So given that the Secretary and the National Security Advisor just said that this attack by Iran is sort of definitively escalatory in nature. I know that you've been telling us, the Secretary even told us that for months you've been encouraging the Israelis not to respond to attacks and provocations in such a way that escalates anything further. Or is the Secretary going to continue to offer that same advice to the Israelis now in the wake of these missile strikes?
I'll say a couple things about that. First, of course, Israel has the right to defend itself, as any nation does. In terms of what Israel's response will be, of course, there must be consequences for Iran for this attack. We've made clear that there must be consequences. I'm not going to get into what those consequences are today, but there are things on which we will be coordinating with our Israeli counterparts. And I think in the immediate aftermath of this attack, we are going to coordinate with them on what any response might be. I think it's important that we are able to defeat this attack through successful work with Israel and with our partners, and we will work with them on what a response might look like, but I'm not at the position just 2.5 hours after this event occurred to offer what that might look like today.
We were just listening to the State Department briefing there with Matthew Miller, talking about 6,000 U.S. citizens who have registered with the State Department in Lebanon in the case that they will need to be evacuated at some point there. So there is a lot of communication happening there. We have a little bit of dueling press conferences going on now, so many things happening as this is all breaking and unfolding. We're going to go now to the Pentagon briefing and Major General Pat Ryder, who's giving an update from the Pentagon perspective. Take a listen.
Defense of Israel.
And then, are there any plans underway to conduct a NEO given the increased risk of a wider war?
Right now, there has been no order to evacuate. As you've heard us say before, we are a planning organization, so we, of course, plan for all contingencies. But as of right now, State Department has not called for an evacuation. Jennifer.
Should we assume that the SM-3s were used by the Cole and the Bulkley to shoot down or to intercept the missiles?
I'm not going to get into the specific type of ordnance, Jennifer, other than to say, again, they fired a dozen interceptors.
And Iran said that they gave a heads up to the U.S. and to Russia. How much warning were you given by Iran?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any pre-warning by Iran about their potential attack. As you know, this is something we've been following very closely for a while, based on the threats of retaliation by Iran. And so we've been closely consulting with Israel for a while now to be prepared in the eventuality. And as today demonstrated, we were prepared, and we were able to successfully work alongside Israel to defend them from this attack. Let me go to Carla.
Thanks, Pat. You said that the destroyers shot down Iranian missiles. Where do they come from? Were they all from inside Iran, or was some also from Yemen being shot by the Houthis?
Carla, to my knowledge, and again, we're still assessing this, these were all launched from Iran, ballistic missiles. And what I said was that they fired the interceptors towards those missiles. So.
And then were any other U.S. assets involved in this defense?
Of course, we have a lot of capability in the region, a lot of things that are there to be prepared for a wide variety of threats. But in terms of the launching of these interceptors, it was those two destroyers.
So just being clear, no ground-based interceptors were used in this.
Correct.
Were the were you aware of any duds that didn't fire off, that maybe Iran wanted to fire more than the roughly 200?
As I mentioned, we're still assessing the outcome of the attack, and so we'll have much more information later. But these are all, our initial reports.
And then on the second call with the Secretary and Minister Gallant, did he urge Israel not to respond or to moderate any response to Iran, or did Gallant share any of Israeli intentions for their potential response here?
Well, again, as I'm sure you can appreciate, I'm just not going to be able to get into the details of their call, other than to say, again, we're consulting closely about next steps and the continued defense of Israel.
What does Secretary Austin think about the potential for an Israeli response here? Would he urge them, without saying what he said in the call necessarily, but what are his feelings about the potential? Would he urge them restraint, or?
Well, look, if you take a step back here, we fully support Israel's right to defend itself. You just saw a very significant ballistic missile attack by Iran against Israel. And so, we'll continue to work alongside them to support their defense. We, of course, do not want to see a wider regional conflict. You've heard us say that many times, and we'll continue to work towards that end. But we also fully understand the fact that this was a significant attack by Iran, and so we're going to continue to consult closely, and we're going to continue to support their defense. Let me go to Laura.
Thank you. Just a couple of clarifications. Do you say that the U.S. destroyers had intercepted or shot down the missiles, or just that they fired?
I said that they fired approximately a dozen interceptors against the incoming Iranian missiles.
And were there any U.S. aircraft that shot interceptors at Iranian missiles?
What I've read out is what participated in the defense of Israel. Okay.
And then, sorry, just one more. Can you say if there were any drones or cruise missiles that were involved in the Iranian
Again,
attack?
still assessing it right now. It appears it was ballistic missiles. No drones, but again, we'll continue to assess. Let me go to Joseph.
So that was a Pentagon briefing that's taking place. Major General Pat Ryder, spokesperson there, giving a briefing in terms of what was happening there. Around 200 ballistic missiles fired from inside of Iran. Also, that the U.S. destroyers fired about a dozen interceptors towards those. We did not get a real assessment in terms of what they hit, what they missed, what took place there. I do want to go back quickly to something that Jake Sullivan said in his briefing, in the White House briefing. We had 3 press briefings going on at once here. Jake Sullivan talked about the component of escalation in this current conflict and what this all means. Take a listen.
Obviously, this is a significant escalation by Iran, a significant event, and it is equally significant that we were able to step up with Israel and create a situation in which no one was killed in this attack in Israel, so far as we know at this time. We are now going to look at what the appropriate next steps are to secure, first and foremost, American interests, and then to promote stability to the maximum extent possible as we go forward.
So a major escalator from Iran, over 200 ballistic missiles fired at Israel fired from inside of Iran. We know that U.S. destroyers positioned in the region fired about a dozen interceptors. As part of that, we know conversations have been happening between Defense Secretary Austin and his counterpart, Mr. Gallant, in Israel. We know there are other conversations that are happening between the White House and their counterparts in Israel as they continue to see the aftermath of this escalation by Iran. Again, about 200 ballistic missiles fired into Israel from Iran, all coming from within Iran, not any other places in Yemen or Lebanon or anywhere else. So all coming from Iran directly. And we're going to go ahead and stay with this question and conversation. Obviously, KSL News Radio has you covered throughout the afternoon as we continue to watch this unfold in the Middle East. When we come back, we'll be joined by Lieutenant General Richard Newton, who's retired United States Air Force, and he will give us some insight in terms of his perspective on what's been taking place and what comes next. Stay with us.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. When the politicians speak and the headlines become a soupy noise.
Make it great again. Burdened by what has
and lost car keys and forgotten passwords overwhelm. It's time to turn off the screens and take a break. Join KSL for the 194th Semi-Annual General Conference of The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Coverage begins Saturday morning at 9:30. Take conference with you at 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and on the app for KSL News Radio.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates. This weekend only, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Hi, I'm Nate Orchard, the mayor of Sac Lake City with Advanced Window Products.
And I'm Jake, the other guy. Are your windows old and inefficient and driving up your energy bills?
It's time for an upgrade. Our energy-efficient windows not only look great, but also help you save on your utility bills.
And right now, we're offering an incredible deal. $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more.
That's right, $2,500 in savings to make your home more comfortable and energy efficient.
Plus, we offer a lifetime warranty on all our windows, so you can have peace of mind.
Don't wait. Call us today at 801-850-9100 or visit us at advancedwindows.com to schedule your free estimate. We also offer payment plans as low as $150 a month.
From our factory to your installation in 8 weeks or less. Call us today at 801-850-9100 or visit us at advancedwindows.com to schedule your free estimate.
Advanced Window Products, Utah's window experts.
My wife and I always loved doing everything together. Jiu-jitsu, kayaking, and intimacy was always on point. It was around my early 30s when I noticed a downward trend. watching a lot of TV, putting on weight, and just full of self-doubt. I tried another men's clinic with disappointing results. It's the personalized treatment I receive at Revive Men's Health that has been the complete game changer for me. I've got my energy and motivation back, I'm feeling stronger than I did in my 20s, and it made me a much better husband to my wife.
I'm Eric Ramos, healthcare provider at Revive Men's Health. If you are always feeling tired or moody, have a difficult time sleeping, or decreased libido, you may be suffering from low testosterone.
Book your free T-check and exam at Revive Men's Health, Salt Lake City. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Tom Kelly's carbon fiber mountain bike. Because more than riding his carbon fiber mountain bike, Tom loves telling people about his carbon fiber mountain bike. Friends, family, even a local barista knows about his carbon fiber mountain bike. And that's why Tom's carbon fiber mountain bike, if you haven't heard about it, is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
This report is brought to you by Macy's. Don't miss Macy's VIP sale. Use your coupon or Macy's card and take an extra 30% off the latest fall trends and save 15% off skincare, makeup, and more. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply. Now at Macy's.
With Wendy's, breakfast burrito is everything you want for breakfast. Fresh cracked eggs, seasoned potatoes, American cheese, cheese sauce, bacon or sausage, all rolled up into one warm tortilla. Want the boss of breakfast burritos? Gotta be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, the all-clear sounded in Tel Aviv after Iran launched a missile attack against Israel. Most of the missiles were intercepted. Second, an employee of the Murray Boys and Girls Club has been arrested on a child sex abuse charge. And third, a micro-shelter community that successfully kept dozens of people safe last year has been relocated now in Salt Lake City. Right now, 73 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. I'm Boyd Matheson. Great to be with you today, as always. And, of course, we're continuing to follow very closely the events as they have continued to unfold inside of Israel. Of course, Iran firing about 200 ballistic missiles at Israel. We've been listening to almost dueling press conferences from the State Department, from the Pentagon briefing, which is still going on. We're watching Major General Pat Ryder continue to take questions there. Also, a little bit earlier, we had some insight there from Jake Sullivan as well from the White House press briefing. And as we continue to watch this all play out, there's a lot of things happening underneath the surface. And I'm really pleased to have joining us on the program now retired Lieutenant General Richard Newton, United States Air Force, senior national security contributor to News Nation. And General, thanks for joining us today.
Good afternoon, Boyd. It's good to be with you on a very, very eventful afternoon.
It is. So many different things happening. Give us your sense, having watched this all play out and understanding a lot of those things that are taking place behind the scenes. Give us your assessment.
Well, first off, context I think is very important. Israel has been really fighting for, I believe, its survival for many years, but certainly on October 7th when Hamas attacked brutally Israel on the 7th of October, as I mentioned, and then Hezbollah started the beginning of 11,000 missiles and drones and projectiles into northern Israel along the Lebanese border, all at the hands, by the way, of Iran. Iran is the parent of all this. They are the largest exporter of terrorism in the world, to include their proxies of Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis in Yemen, and certainly Iraq and Syria and elsewhere. And so what you're seeing today is a second wave of attack. First was in April 13th, which was ineffective from Iran into Israel, over 300 missiles then. Today, as you reported, about 160 to 200 ballistic missiles fired on Israel. My sources tell me no casualties at this point. And so Iran is trying to not only influence but try to even defeat Israel in this case, but to no effect so far.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful you had that perspective. I think it is important for us to recognize 11,000 missiles fired into particularly northern Israel coming out of Lebanon. And, of course, you've got the Houthis. You still have things going on with Hamas in Gaza. And so really this multi-front that has opened up. I wonder if you could give us some perspective, General, in terms of where this puts Iran now that they've fired close to 200 ballistic missiles with no effect. So the Iron Dome and the partners, including the United States, have thwarted that. What does that do, and what kind of mindset does that put Iran in, saying that, hey, they declared to the world there would be retribution for the killing of these top leaders of Hezbollah, and now they have proved that is ineffective. What position does that put them in? What are we likely to see next from them?
Iran has, bottom line, Iran's been humiliated in the last couple of months. You had the Hamas leader assassinated in Tehran on July 31st from Israeli intelligence operation. You had Hezbollah's Nasrallah, their leader, was killed just a couple of days or so ago from an Israeli attack in southern suburbs of Beirut. With what I call a 2,000-pound bunker buster and so forth. And so that their proxies, Iran's proxies, have pretty much been defeated, or certainly to almost to the point of taking off the battlefield map over the last several months, which leaves Iran in a position of forcing them to respond today. And again, based on what they did in April and now what they've done today, to almost no effect. Other than it shows again, Boyd, Iran is a source of much of the chaos that we see in the Mideast. As I mentioned, they're the largest exporter of terrorism. They remain that way. They rely on their proxies. They have a fairly small, conventional military capabilities, but where they try to create chaos and from their strength are these proxies. And if Israel, as they've demonstrated, is able to go and decimate certainly the leadership of both Hamas and Hezbollah, and they're now working on the Houthis in Yemen, where does that leave Iran? It leaves them in a precarious situation. And we saw that today where Iran tried to strike back ineffectively. Next steps are I don't know specifically. I don't think anybody knows what's going to come out of Israel, although I believe it'll be much more stern, much more audacious than we saw back in April when Israel reached out, struck Iran in a fairly benign manner, but showed Iran, but also the rest of the Mideast, that they could reach out and strike at their will against Iran. I think what you're going to see next, I'll close here, what you're going to see next is a much more stern, perhaps more robust strike against Iranian capabilities. It could be against their oil infrastructure. It could be a cyber attack against their power grids. They could go after their nuclear weapons development facilities and capabilities, but to be determined.
Yeah. Let me get one last question in for you, and that is on the administration, the White House response. You alluded to this back in the spring. It was really the message from President Biden to Benjamin Netanyahu and his government to take the win and move on, and kind of this idea of de-escalate almost at every turn and at any cost. You alluded to it, that it's more likely to be a much more stern response. Do you think the White House continues with this, hey, just take the win and move on? Or is this going to be a moment where the administration might pivot a little bit in terms of saying, go ahead and send the message?
Well, the Biden administration sure has their finger in the wind to determine where the winds are heading right now. I think you're seeing a shift, a significant shift in the Mideast, point one. Point two, I'll be very candid. I think the Biden administration, at least politically, has been rather weak in terms of their approach to our close ally and dear friend Israel, who's under constant attack on multiple fronts here. And so what has that really gained Israel? And again, they've been under attack from Iran and their proxies for years. And now that the tide's turning because you've had a very strong Israel not only militarily respond, but another instrument of national power in terms of their political will and their diplomatic capabilities. In order to deter aggressors and future aggressions, in this case Israel against Iran, it takes both capability and it takes will. And you've seen that demonstrated here. Yeah. And I believe the Biden administration has been lagging in that case of supporting Israel. We have so from a military standpoint. We provided our capabilities not only to help defend Israel, but as we saw today, but also to protect our 40,000 men and women in the region. But the rhetoric that we've had to try to compel Israel to go along in terms of what I call feckless ceasefire negotiations hasn't done anybody good, specifically Israel. So I don't think Israel can let this go. And I believe they're now somewhat unleashed themselves from Biden administration to move forward, and we shall see. We do not want a wider war, however. That's not an interest of Israel. It's not an interest of Iran, for that matter, but certainly not the United States. But more to follow on that point.
Yeah. Fabulous insight. And retired Lieutenant General Richard Newton, senior national security contributor for News Nation, and fabulous insight. And this is another one of those areas where it's a leadership issue in the end. It has to be a leadership issue first, last, and always, especially on that last point of our own 40,000 women and men that are in that region, that we've got to make sure we're watching them and protecting them in this whole process as well. General Newton, thank you so much for joining us today. Fabulous insight.
Thank you, Boyd. Couldn't agree more. Best to you.
All right. That's retired Lieutenant General Richard Newton, again, senior national security contributor for News Nation. Wonderful insight there. We'll continue to follow all of this and track it. Stay with us. We've got you covered here on KSL News Radio. We'll be right back.
You've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Israeli forces say about 180 missiles were fired toward Israel from Iran overnight. No word on any casualties, but ABC News has learned that Iran may be targeting military installations around Tel Aviv. ABC's Ann Flaherty says the U.S. helped Israel intercept some of the missiles. Not known yet what the U.S. involvement will ultimately be.
We have a lot of troops stationed on ships, Iraq and Syria, and in drone bases. All of them, they are very nervous that these service members might be caught in the crosshairs. They, of course, want to also defend Israel and Israel's right to defend itself. They say that that is a very clear message. The
Iranian attack was meant as retaliation for Israel's attacks on Hezbollah, which have killed some of its top leaders. And in sports, Gonzaga University is joining the Pac-12 Conference for all sports, including men's and women's basketball. The Bulldogs from Spokane will join the reconstituted conference, which now includes several teams that played in the Mountain West, including Utah State University. Gonzaga had played in the West Coast Conference in recent years. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day now, 97 points, while the NASDAQ has been down sharply all day right now, down 255. And our KSL weather looks like sunshine and warm temperatures through the rest of the week. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:34.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
And now a minute of kindness brought to you by One Kind Act a Day. Human beings are social creatures. We crave connection and community. We have the power to foster stronger relationships and communities through our actions, specifically our kindness. What would be the impact in the world today if everyone focused on doing at least one deliberate act of kindness every day? Well, that's the goal of One Kind Act a Day, where we believe that small acts done by many create big change. With our daily acts of kindness, we can all create kinder, more cohesive cities, businesses, schools, places of worship, and even in our homes. Find out more about how you can be involved online at thepowerofkind.org. That's thepowerofkind.org.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you know that these days, generating growth is a challenge. By teaming with Bank of America, you'll not just stay ahead of the curve, you'll move it. With access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2024 Bank of America, N.A.
In 2024, dating is a disaster. We've been ghosted, breadcrumbed, stuck in situationships. Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm Caitlin. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age. Dating has been so dicey for us, we asked KSL, can we launch an all-new podcast about it?
People use these dating apps. You're not really dating when you're on the dating app.
Dating at Her Age, brought to you by Mountain Home Services. A new episode drops every Thursday on KSLNewsRadio.com.
Nearly 70% of Utah's land is controlled by the federal government, severely limiting Utah's ability to actively manage and protect our natural resources. Our families, businesses, and communities know there's a better way. Utahns have been good stewards of our public lands for generations. That's why we're asking each and every Utahn to get informed, speak up, and learn more at standforourland.utah.gov.
We have emergency traffic once again brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Michelle Rowe.
This is due to a multi-car crash northbound I-15 at 114th South, still blocking at least 2 right lanes. Traffic is backed up all the way to 146 South and Draper State Street in the area, also busy. So you may want to delay travel or use an alternate if possible. Also looking at a crash eastbound I-80 at 40th West off to the right. Experience fall in Cedar City. Color featuring 4 scenic highways, Red Rock Views and Cedar Breaks, and Dixie National Forest, Shakespeare Festival, hiking, mountain biking, and more. Begin your journey at visitcedarcity.com. I'm Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
We'll see warmer daytime temperatures for the rest of the week, with lows dropping into the 50s overnight. And right now, 74 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com, where Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson.
On Utah's home
for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, on a day like today, we talk a lot about what's going on as it relates to national security. But when it comes to this world of national security, there's one critical issue that often flies underneath the radar, and that is the timely funding of America's military. And there's all kinds of deadlines that continue to loom, the consequences of delayed budgets and continuing resolutions, all the bureaucratic inconveniences that come with that. And the recurring challenge of all of this not only impacts the safety and well-being of our service members, which should be first, last, and always, but it also threatens America's global competitiveness and our national security. And so particularly on a day like today, we want to get underneath the headlines of what's going on. We've been covering that for you here on KSL News Radio. I want to bring in now Elaine McCusker, someone we often turn to, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. She focuses on defense strategy, budget, innovation, the U.S. military, and national security. And Elaine, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to have you back on. And obviously on a day like today, you see a lot of things start to play out. And this is one of those, your area, I always say this is what we do when we don't have to do anything or when we can procrastinate, often ends up biting you in the end. And are we starting to see that as it plays out in the Middle East? A lot of these things, because of the way we're funding and not funding the military, that we're not really getting the performance we need when we actually need it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. I mean, here we are, another October 1st. another temporary funding extension that essentially just continues what we were doing last year into the new year. And this causes damage to our national security, to our industrial base, to our service members and their families, and honestly to the taxpayer too, as we are not getting the most bang for our buck. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, this damage is both avoidable and self-inflicted. Passing the defense bill is the main job responsibility of the representatives we send to Washington, D.C., yet they almost never do their job on time. In fact, America's military has lost nearly 1/3 of the last 15 years to CRs, and we can't buy back that time. And even if we could, we wouldn't have the money because we waste billions in buying power during CRs. And really, to understand how debilitating this is, imagine running a race and spending 25 to 30% of the time just looking for your shoes. What are your chances of winning that race? And right now, we're in a CR that lasts until December 20th, so that's 81 days, which means we'll be losing up to $8.2 billion in buying power during that time. And like you said, the damage that these do really spans the globe here, from impacts on our service members to, as you said, our competitiveness. And meanwhile, our adversaries are not stuck in this kind of thing. And as a matter of fact, a recent commission that looked at the national defense strategy said that China is outpacing the United States in many ways. And we can easily see this in shipbuilding. China has become the world's top shipbuilding and shipping nation with 230 times more shipbuilding capacity than the United States. Wow. And that's just kind of one example of what we're up against.
Yeah, and one of the things that you always point out that I think is so important for all of us to understand is that when we get one of these continuing resolutions, we always remind Congress September 30th comes every single year, always has, always will, without fail. And yet we get these continuing resolutions. And I want you to just walk us through the crucial consequence of all of that, which is if we have a program that's not working, we can't change it. Or if something's working really well, we can't add to it because we're functioning off of something from the last year or from 2 years previous.
That's exactly right. And one of the many conditions of the CR, in addition to just sort of extending what we're doing, is we can't start anything new. We can't increase production. And we basically just remain stagnant. As a matter of fact, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which he's the highest ranking military officer in the United States. And by the way, he's a very smart and calm guy. He said CRs significantly impact and degrade acquisition of the warfighting capability and capacity required to defend the United States and our interests. And this year, in order to try to help people understand this a little bit better, I looked at just 3 different examples of consequences. The first is lives lost during training accidents because operating under CRs can mess with the training schedule and with equipment maintenance. Number 2, poor living conditions for U.S. service members and their families due to maintenance and renovation of buildings that are not getting done. And 3, kind of as we already mentioned, increased costs and timelines for the stuff that we buy. And by the way, older equipment that we're having to continue to operate during CRs because we're not buying what we need actually cost more to maintain.
Wow. Yeah, that is all of it in a nutshell right there in terms of the impact. We always say, oh, there's a CR, great, we avoided a government shutdown. And that's good. We don't want a government shutdown. But we also have to look at all of the downstream repercussions of Congress not doing their job. And on a day like today where we're watching a lot of things that impact our military women and men around the world, we've got 40,000 of them in the region. And if they're having to deal with old equipment or maintaining that because we couldn't buy the new stuff because Congress did a continuing resolution, those are real costs. And Elaine McCusker, always appreciate your insight and perspective. I want to have you come back, and we're going to continue to dig into this because I think it's a crucial conversation that we've got to get front and center, both for our representatives to understand and for the American people to hold them accountable for, because this is one of those things that really matters in the end. Elaine, as always, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Great perspective there from Elaine McCusker, Senior Fellow with the American Enterprise Institute. She focuses on defense strategy, budget innovation, the U.S. military, and national security. And on a day like today, where we're watching events unfold in the Middle East and our women and men in harm's way and doing things to help our critical ally in the region, Israel, there's a lot that we have to turn back and say, did Congress do their job when they were supposed to do their job? And if not, why not? And will we hold them accountable? Because it matters. And in a complicated, complex, and very dangerous world that we live in, it's going to matter even more in the months and years ahead. We'll be right back.
I'm Utah Tax Attorney Jordan Wilcox. Listen to what actual clients have had to say about working with us.
Hi, I'm Gary. I'm a building contractor. About a year prior to the market crashing, we had a big job that was unable to pay a bill of about 6 figures. We were still left with a very difficult situation with the IRS. Eventually, at the end of the day, I realized that the penalties and interest were growing faster than my ability to save to deal with it. I had talked to people, and I felt that Jordan Wilcox represented best what I thought could help me, primarily because they were local, and I needed a bigger solution than I was coming up with. It takes too long to figure it out on your own.
Hi, I'm Jordan Wilcox. You need a tax attorney that's not afraid to fight for you. Visit taxhelput.com to schedule your free consultation.
I would recommend Jordan Wilcox. It feels very good to not have the IRS on your back.
That's taxhelput.com.
Sign up for KSL Text Alerts. Get breaking news and traffic updates by texting the word news to 57500. Want access to exclusive contests? Text contest to 57500. Jazz fans, text the word jazz for breaking jazz updates. And Cougar fans, text BYU to 57500 for the latest on the Cougars. Message and data rates may apply.
I started my soda weight loss journey over a year ago, and it is so nice to be heading into the fall and winter holidays looking and feeling so much better than I did at this time in 2023. Best of all, I let go of that 70 pounds of fat and didn't have to use any medications, get any injections, or deal with any crazy side effects. My fellow soda client Vicky got amazing results too.
I have shed over 72 pounds and lost 47.5 inches of body fat. And I am off of every medication for the first time in my life. Oh my gosh, I'm so ecstatic about that.
Well, that excitement's contagious, isn't it? If you start now, you could be down 30 to even 50 pounds by the end of the holidays. It's as simple as going to sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com and clicking on Request a Nutritionist Callback. Soda is the #1 rated weight loss company in America for client results and client satisfaction. And you know why? Because soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
Get ready for the spooky season by eliminating all of the spooky dirt, grime, and spills. Halloween brings out the best in people, but also the scariest dirt from all the foot traffic. Carpets, tiles, rugs, upholstery, basically every surface in your home can be zero resified. Right now, you can get your entire home zero resified and get 3 rooms of carpet cleaning starting out at only $109 and take 20% off your air duct cleaning. Don't let a misdeal haunt you. Schedule at zerores.com or call 801-288-9376 and ask for this special.
At the UPS store, we understand the importance of a first impression. That's why we're here to help you put your best foot forward and be unstoppable with our printing services. With high-quality paper stock options, banners, business cards, menus, and more, we make sure your small business stands out and your message reaches the masses. After all, we're the one-stop prints that pop store. Most locations are independently owned. Product, services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS store. Be unstoppable. Come into your local store today and get your print on.
This report is brought to you by Macy's. Don't miss Macy's VIP sale. Use your coupon or Macy's card and take an extra 30% off the latest fall trends and save 15% off skincare, makeup, and more. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply. Now at Macy's.
With Wendy's, breakfast burrito is everything you want for breakfast. Fresh cracked eggs, seasoned potatoes, American cheese, cheese sauce, bacon, or sausage, all rolled up into one warm tortilla. Want the boss of breakfast burritos? Gotta be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's.
The KSL News Radio Movie Show comes to My Hearing Centers this Friday from 10 to 1. But first, discover what My Hearing Centers can do for you. My Hearing Centers uses advanced technology to diagnose and treat hearing loss. These comprehensive evaluations determine the best treatment options. Then enjoy lifetime support with regular check-ins, cleaning, and maintenance. Call My Hearing Centers at 801-701-1629. 801-701-1629 for more details. My Hearing Centers has offices from Ogden to St. George.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Israel is vowing a response to Iran's missile attack today. More than 180 missiles were fired at Tel Aviv and other targets. Second, Gonzaga University doesn't have a football team, but it's joining the Pac-12 conference. Third, what's called a mud volcano has turned up at Lake Powell. Underground methane gas pushing mud to the surface. Right now, 74 degrees in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. And, you know, with all the things going on in the world and many of the things that we see right here at home, we see scandals happening with mayors and governors and members of Congress. We hear about lying and cheating and fact-checking, and on and on and on it goes. And you might begin to wonder if America has a soul or a conscience left. And it might be time to rethink that just a little bit. Are Americans really dishonest, or are we really kind of an honest lot? Let's think again about that. And, of course, we always like to have Jay Evenson join us for that kind of discussion. And, Jay, a lot of cynicism out there of people saying, hey, we've kind of lost our way. It's a scandal a day, and some days it's three. Where are we as a country when it comes to things like honesty?
Well, I love to do this about once a year or so, and it's especially important in an election year. And we're going to have a big debate tonight, and they're going to be fact checkers, and they're going to be telling us all about the lies and the mistruths and misstatements and all of that. So about once a year, I like to get online and go to Google and just look up things like lost money returned or lost jewelry returned. And you come up with an amazing number of stories, news stories, about people who are extraordinarily honest. Yeah. And it really reinforces and renews your faith in humankind. Yeah. And that's what I did for this column.
It's a great piece. You can check it out at Deseret.com. And to me, one of the interesting things that you highlighted in this particular column is I always go to this idea that a person is not honest just because they haven't had a chance to lie. And you actually go through some things where people could have had a chance to maybe take an easier path, but chose the truth instead.
Well, I highlight a number of stories. I think my favorite one was of this man named Greg Thau, who lives in Denver. And he'd been in a local bar, and he'd been involved in a pool there, on a football pool, and he'd actually won. He'd never won anything before, $511, and he got it in an envelope, and it had his name on it. And he gets to the bank to deposit it, and he can't find the envelope. He's lost it. He doesn't know where, but he has lost it. And there's a woman from Memphis, Tennessee, Carla Montgomery, and she finds this envelope. And the problem with the envelope is that his name was not spelled Greg Thau. It was spelled Throw. And so she goes online, and she does a number of queries. She goes to the police. She goes to the U.S. Marshal Service. She goes to the FBI in trying to locate who belongs to this $511. Boyd, it took 5 months. 5 months she held on to this money, and her friends were telling her, just enjoy it. I mean, you'll never find whose money it is. And she kept saying, no, this is not my money. And finally, she saw someone online named Thau, who lived in Denver, and she thought, well, I'll take a chance. And she contacted him, and of course it was his money, and she goes to Denver and returns it to him. And I think one of the best parts about finding these stories is the aftermath and seeing how people react to things. And CBS News picked up on this story, and they had the two of them on there. And Greg Thau said, I think her act of kindness has changed my life. It's just been this domino effect. It's like if I have a choice to do the better thing or the good thing, I think of Carla. I think that's how I'll probably live the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. What a legacy of just being considerate enough to say, this isn't mine, I'm going to find whose it is and return it.
Yeah.
And how that changes lives. To me, that's just astounding. And you can find lots of stories just like that.
Yeah, they are everywhere. You just have to look, and often what we look for, we find. And it's interesting as we look at that and we engage in that, we start to see it more. It's like when you buy a new car and you think you got the only one of that color, and then suddenly you look around and everyone seems to have that car in that color. But the same thing's true when it comes to honesty and integrity and getting to the truth. We just have to look for it a little more because it really is all around us.
And it doesn't typically seek for attention.
Yeah.
So I like to say, we hear a lot about when there's a horrible crime, there's a school shooting, there's some other random horrible thing. Then we always have copycats that come along later and try to imitate that same type of crime. I firmly believe that there are copycats of goodness as well, and that when people hear stories like this, they want to do that. Years ago, I did a story on a woman who had a horrible thing done to her by a teenager who threw a frozen turkey through her windshield as she was driving down the street.
Yeah.
And she decided to forgive him in court and changed his life. And I've heard personally of stories of other people who read about that and have had similar types of experiences and have been able to forgive because of her power to forgive in that circumstance. And that just reinforces my feeling that there are copycats to goodness out there, which is why we need to keep doing good things.
Yeah, no question about it. We all need to get to that good because there's plenty of bad out there, and we'll see it in the headlines. We'll see it in our social media feed. And we have to be careful what we click on as well, because the more we click on all the negative and all the scandals of people in power or powerful positions or fame, we're going to get more of that served up. Give us just one last one real quick, Jay, in terms of maybe something that we could be looking for or should be looking for when it comes to this kind of honesty.
Well, look for examples where people could enrich themselves and they don't necessarily have to be honest.
Yeah.
What do you do when you don't have to be honest? I found one. This was a year ago of a young man. And he went through a drive-through window at a restaurant, and in addition to his hamburger, he got that day's deposits. It was over $5,000.
Oh my goodness!
In an envelope. And so he did what any young person would do. He did a TikTok video, and he used this envelope, and he says, "Why are you doing this to me?" Kind of in a facetious sort of way. I need this money. But then he filmed himself going back to the fast food restaurant and giving that money back, and the woman the worker there who had lost it, she was so grateful because she had just ruined her entire day by giving away the deposits for that day. And so, look for example. He could have easily gotten away with that money where people don't have to be honest, but they are. And I think that goes to what your true character is.
Yeah, true character. That is the real test of all of this. And, we just launched today a new initiative here, thepowerofkind.org. And just what happens if we all just intentionally went about and did one kind act a day. And whether it was an act of kindness or an act of truth or being honest when we didn't have to be, I think we always have to be actually in the end when we get to that character issue that Jay's been telling us about. But you can check it out at the powerofkind.org, thepowerofkind.org. Be part of that movement. If you want to join a movement today, that's the movement to be a part of. Be kind, be honest, look for the truth, you'll find it, and look for the goodness, and be part of it, because all of us have a responsibility to be it and to do it. Thanks again to Jay Evenson from Deseret News. Check out his piece at Deseret.com. That wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news. Don't go anywhere. Big hour number 2 of Inside Sources coming up next.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomis. KSL's top story this hour. The spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Forces says for now, there's an all clear after Iran launched missile strikes earlier today. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says the U.S. worked with the IDF to defend Israel.
We do not know of any damage to aircraft or strategic military assets in Israel. In short, based on what we know at this point, this attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective.
Israel has promised in response to the attack, which was launched in retaliation for Israel's airstrikes and ground action against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Here in Utah, scientists have discovered a mud volcano at Lake Powell. This is a geyser-like phenomenon that occurs when trapped methane bubbles up to the surface, usually after water levels in a lake or reservoir go down. The released gas raising questions now about how this location at Lake Powell and other potential locations at other reservoirs could affect climate change by releasing methane. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day, 172 points at this hour, and the NASDAQ is down 278. Our KSL weather looks like warm temperatures through the rest of the week, but cool overnight. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. So at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and data for $30 a line when you buy two. That's just $60 a month for 2 unlimited lines. So if you're 50 and up, make the switch and save. Come on, you've earned this. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today. Requires 2 lines of service, age validation, and credit approval, subject to system and area limits, taxes, and other fees apply.
Febreze. So my home is also my office. And before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up and spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day. Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Being prepared for an emergency is vital to you, your families, and your community's well-being. Unfortunately, if you don't know how to survive the initial impact of a disaster, then your other preparations don't really matter. It is vital to know and practice the protective actions associated with specific hazards in your area. What are protective actions? Protective actions are the immediate things you need to do to protect yourself and others from the initial impact of a hazardous incident. One example you learned in school is the protective action for if your clothes catch on fire. Stop, drop, and roll. Woo! Another example is the protective action for earthquakes. Drop, cover, and hold on. As you learn the protective actions for different hazards, practice and teach them to those you care about. For more information on protective actions and how you can prepare for disasters in your neighborhood, visit beready.utah.gov. Be ready, Utah!
Do you snore at night? You could be suffering from sleep apnea, a serious medical condition. Be one of the first 25 people to call Sound Sleep Medical and receive a free sleep consultation, normally a $200 value. Sound Sleep Medical uses a custom-fitted oral appliance instead of a cumbersome CPAP machine to treat sleep apnea. Most insurance companies and Medicare cover oral appliance therapy. To learn more, call 801-285-9731 or visit soundsleepmedical.com.
Get ready for the spooky season by eliminating all of the spooky dirt, grime, and spills. Halloween brings out the best in people, but also the scariest dirt from all the foot traffic. Carpets, tiles, rugs, upholstery, basically every surface in your home can be Zero Resified. Right now, you can get your entire home Zero Resified and get 3 rooms of carpet cleaning starting out at only $109 and take 20% off your air duct cleaning. Don't let a misdeal haunt you. Schedule at ZeroRes.com or call 801-288-9376 and ask for this special.
Emergency traffic continues now. Brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Michelle Rowe.
This is a northbound crash, I-15 in Draper at 114th South. We still have the 3 right lanes blocked. Traffic's backed clear to 146 South in Draper, so if you can use an alternate or delay travel, that'd be a good idea. New delays have just popped up. This is as you're going between about 4500 South, northbound I-15 up to about 33rd South. Don't have a cause for that problem yet. Celebrate Taco Tuesday the tasty way at Cafe Rio. Handmade tortillas bring the vibe, slow braised meats bring the punch, and 12 tasty toppings bring the party. Starting at just $2.49. I'm Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
Warm daytime temperatures for the rest of the week. Lows dropping into the 50s overnight. And right now we're at 75 degrees with sunny skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, it is a day with a lot of headlines. We are continuing to monitor very closely the developments in the Middle East. We know that Israelis have been ordered to stay near bomb shelters. While they have said that they have thwarted this particular attack, they are still being cautioned to stay near bomb shelters. We'll continue to watch that all play out and continue to give you up-to-the-date information. Here on KSL News Radio, we've got you covered. And, of course, there are other headlines going on today. A big vice presidential debate will take the spotlight tonight as the number twos for both the Democrats and the Republicans will take to the stage. J.D. Vance, Tim Walz, very different, coming at things from a very different framework and how they view the country in this particular moment. And so let's get past the headlines in terms of what we maybe ought to watch for, what we ought to lean into as these two take to the debate stage tonight and what will be the final debate before the election.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, let's think again about what we think we know when it comes to vice presidential debates. We know historically vice presidential debates have not really move the needle a whole lot in terms of the outcome of elections. We know there's been some particular moments that were either gotcha moments or moments that were nice for media attention, but not a lot of them ultimately had a lot of sway in terms of how the election actually came out. I think one of those most significant moments was during the campaign in 1984 when you had Senator Benson, who was the number 2, and Dan Quayle, who was the number 2. And, of course, Dan Quayle talked about him being the same age as a Jack Kennedy. And, of course, Senator Benson said, I knew Jack Kennedy. I worked with Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend, and you're no Jack Kennedy. And even though that was a great line, delivered at a great moment in a powerful way, it seemed to be a devastating blow on Dan Quayle as the number 2. It didn't move the needle in terms of the election. It just didn't matter in the end. And so there is a lot of question about whether or not this particular vice presidential debate will be a needle mover. I think there are some unique dynamics this year that we haven't had in the past. Of course, President Joe Biden deciding not to be the nominee and Kamala Harris consolidating things quickly and becoming the nominee. So that has changed the dynamic. I think one of the other unique dynamics to this is that this will be the last debate. This will be the last word from the debate stage. And typically you have a vice presidential debate, then you have at least 1 or 2 more presidential debates that follow. And so there, the outcome of the vice presidential debate is less consequential because it sort of gets washed up in the prop wash of future presidential debates. So this will be it. So the stakes will be a little bit higher. We also have 2 vice presidential nominees who aren't nearly as well known. J.D. Vance, of course, has only been in the United States Senate for about 18 months. So the question around J.D. Vance will be which J.D. Vance shows up. Will it be the one that ran for the Senate a year and a half ago? Or will it be the one that has been dominating social media over the last 6 months? That would be an interesting part of the equation. Tim Walz, of course, governor of Minnesota, which Tim Walz shows up tonight. Will it be the aw shucks Midwesterner, the football coach? Will it be the way he governed in the state of Minnesota? Will there be a policy debate that goes on? And how will each of these really function in the context of what else is going on in the world, including what's happening in the Middle East? Surely there will be a Middle East question. I think one of the big questions for both of these candidates, the kind of the minimum standard bar, is twofold. First is the do no harm bar, and that is do no harm to the ticket. And remember, there's only one name on the door in the Oval Office, and it is the president. So the first job of the vice president nominee is to make sure you protect the top of the ticket. So you have to protect your boss. And so it will be interesting to see how both Vance and Walz navigate that part of the program. How much time will Tim Walz spend defending Vice President Harris? How much time will J.D. Vance spend protecting former President Trump? That will be a big part of it. Now, the other part of that minimum bar requirement for both of these candidates is the credibility test. It's the heartbeat away from the presidency test. And while I don't think either one of them is really seen as that's going to be the likely scenario, you have to have that credibility factor. And so you just have to pass that bar. You have to be credible. People have to say, okay, if Tim Walz, if J.D. Vance, if they did become the president, would that be okay? Do they have what it takes in that space? And so I think both of them have to show that they can be serious, that they can get beyond bumper sticker slogans or social media posts. And do they have substance underneath what they do at a campaign rally? Neither one of these gentlemen have been severely tested in terms of real hard questions. Now, J.D. Vance has done many more interviews, hard interviews, than Tim Walz has. Tim Walz has been a little bit of a bubble-wrapped vice presidential candidate, like a little bit surprising to me. Because he is good. He does have that natural Midwestern charm to him. He's great with the one-liners and kind of the football coach speak. But he hasn't really talked to the media in a significant way since he became the nominee. He did a lot as a surrogate leading up to the change in power when the President Biden decided not to run and Kamala Harris became the nominee. He was out there a lot on the stump, doing a lot of interviews, a lot of media appearances. He has literally only spent 90 seconds taking real live interview questions in front of the media. And it was a 90-second exchange. I think it was at the Minnesota State Fair where a group of reporters were shouting questions, and he actually answered a few. That's as far as he's gone. So he's been a little bubble wrapped. So it will be interesting to see tonight if Tim Walz comes out of the bubble wrap. And then what does he do? Does he go with the one-liners and that kind of mentality, or does he really show some substance under there? I think that's the test for him, as if he can do that. J.D. Vance, I think the test will be very simple. Will he talk about conspiracy theories? Will he talk about social media stuff and culture wars? Or will he get to real specific policy pieces? And that presents a challenge for both of these candidates because I think there's a little daylight between the number twos and the number ones on both of these tickets. I think there's some differences in terms of policy approaches for Tim Walz and Vice President Harris. I think there are some policy differences between J.D. Vance and former President Trump. And so that's a really tricky place to be on a debate stage. Being on a debate stage is tricky enough, but now you got to be on a debate stage. You're dealing with both a media person, a moderator. You're also dealing with an opponent on the other side, and you got to navigate it in a way that doesn't overshadow the number one, the top of the ticket, that doesn't contradict the top of the ticket, that doesn't draw negative attention to the top of the ticket. So the degree of difficulty is actually a little higher than we think. And in an election year where there's still a lot of unknowns and a lot of uncertainties about these two candidates, I think it's going to be a very fascinating night to look at how they answer these questions, how they lean in, how they defend their bosses, how they distinguish themselves as being different from their bosses, proving their own mettle and their own qualifications to be in the number 2 slot in the country. And then how they kind of explain where they've been on their own journey, both life journey. I think they'll both do that in a pretty good way. But then their political journey in terms of their own policies and their own belief. So all of that really fascinating stuff coming up on the debate tonight. We'll cover all of that. We'll break it all down tomorrow to see how that played out and if it will have any impact on this election cycle. All right, we'll go ahead and step aside for a quick break, and we'll start thinking again about some other topics as we continue here on Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Today, Tim Walz and J.D. Vance square off in the VP debate.
We need common sense tax and economic policy.
It's not even about policies. It's about sharing our values.
We have special coverage of the vice presidential debate all day today and tomorrow. Your Voice, Your Vote 2024 this week on KSL News Radio.
Hey, we all want a stressless holiday season. With Soda Weight Loss, you will stress much less. With state-of-the-art weight loss, you won't have to stress about fitting into that holiday outfit. You won't have to stress about how you look in the family photo. You'll stress less about emotional eating. My Soda dietitian and coach took the stress out of losing weight for me, and they will for you too. I lost 37 pounds in 90 days. I've kept it off, stress-free, for nearly 3 years now. Stress less about potentially dangerous fat loss drugs. Stress less about pills and injections. Stress less about crazy, sometimes dangerous side effects. So if you want less stress for the holidays, then start the stressless way to get rid of the pounds and inches currently causing your stress. So does the stress-free, natural way to healthy living. When it comes to your Soda weight loss journey, there's no time to lose, only time to win. So start winning today. Have a stressless holiday season with the energy and vitality you need. Check it out at Soda Weight Loss. That's SOTAweightloss.com.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
Are you really that different than the rest of us?
We are. As a fiduciary, we always focus on what's best for our clients.
What services do you offer besides investing?
We have a team of specialists in financial planning, estate planning, and more.
Your clients rely on you for all that?
Yes, we ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Okay, but you still sell commission-based products, right?
No, because we believe that's a conflict of interest. We prioritize service over sales goals.
So, then how do your fees work?
We have a simple and transparent fee that's a percentage of our clients' portfolios. So we do better when our clients do better.
Wow, we're more different than I thought.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Don't you love this time of year? Fabulous fall colors amongst Red Rock Views and Cedar Breaks in Dixie National Forest. You should take a drive where you'll no doubt enjoy 4 scenic highways connecting you to the most amazing fall colors you will ever see. Put the U back in Utah because it's all about the journey you create. This fall, see you in Cedar City. If you like nature, start your journey with a stunning hike for the best scenic views and vibrant colors. Or how about mountain biking and OHVing? You will enjoy all the fun fall events, like the charm of an organic farmer's market. Be sure you include a visit to the best pumpkin patches in the West. And don't miss out on the annual Sheep Parade down Cedar City's Main Street, October 26th. You will definitely get it all this fall in Cedar City. To plan your journey and for Cedar City's updated fall color report, activities, and cool foodie places to go, visit cedarcity.com.
There are many out-of-control factors that can cripple supply chains and break down the ability to get vital supplies for weeks, maybe even longer. Inflation and political instability means the cost of food could skyrocket. Now is the time to do something about it. The first step is to protect your family and stock up on what you need. ReadyWise meals taste incredible, are simple to make, easy to store, and offer up to a 25-year shelf life. ReadyWise is a leader in emergency food supplies. During General Conference Weekend, enjoy savings site-wide on emergency food and supplies. Visit ReadyWise.com/KSL to explore the versatile emergency meal selection and start building your emergency food supply. That's ReadyWise.com/KSL. Use code KSL25 at checkout to take 25% off your purchase. That's ReadyWise.com/KSL and use code KSL25.
Save $2,500 on a new furnace and air conditioner from Any Hour Services. For more information, call Any Hour Services or schedule a free estimate online at anyhourservices.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Iran's missile attack against Israel was apparently aimed at military bases. Most of the missiles were intercepted before they reached their targets. Second, the U.S. Navy was involved in shooting down some of those Iranian missiles. And third, Utah's lieutenant governor says she's received many threats over her handling of Utah's elections. 75 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
One of the other headlines today that has definitely been underneath the radar just a little bit in light of what's happening in the Middle East and the big vice presidential debate tonight is one that's going to impact all of us in a significant way. After a midnight deadline failed to produce a labor agreement, the Union of Longshoremen have declared a strike. So we want to break it down in terms of where the negotiations broke down and how that strike could impact America's ports and affect the overall economy. Taylor Giorno covers business and lobbying for The Hill and co-authors The Hill's nightly business and economy newsletter. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Boyd.
So let's break this down. This is one of those I don't think a whole lot of people are watching, but a whole lot of us are going to start noticing things if this goes on very long. Break it down for us.
Yeah, so shortly after midnight last night, around 47,000 longshoremen, so these are people that work at major ports in the United States, walked off the job after their union, the International Longshoremen's Association, sometimes called the ILA, and the U.S. Maritime Alliance, which is a group of employers, could not come to an agreement. And actually, a lot of retailers have been expecting this for a while. Negotiations broke down back in June over basically the use of an automated gate at a small port in Mobile, Alabama. And the two parties didn't meet for months. So even though there was some last-minute movement ahead of the midnight deadline, the two sides were ultimately not able to come to an agreement, and the strike began from ports all the way from Maine down the East Coast and into the Gulf of Mexico through Texas.
And so part of this was really driven by this whole element of automation in this. Break that down for us.
Yeah. So, you know, everyone in the U.S. economy right now, if you're employed, is thinking about the future of how automation is going to change your job. And this is sort of one of the most high-profile examples of workers who are represented by a union actively negotiating with their employers for how it's going to impact the future of their work. There are lots of ways that these ports could be automated through cranes, the machines that move cargo, but the port workers don't want that. They want to keep their jobs. They want to keep basically a ban on the use of this automation so that they can continue to work there in the future. And so that's the real sticking point in these negotiations is these port workers want a ban on automation of cranes, gates, container moving trucks, in addition to some wage hikes that they say they are owed because they have helped these port owners bring in record profits in the wake of the pandemic. You know, they worked while the rest of the world shut down. Right. So basically they want to make sure their jobs are protected, and they also want a slice of the pie that they say that they've helped generate for their employers.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things that everyone relates to in those kind of those flashback moments of everything coming in and everything kind of shutting down in terms of supply chain and what was happening at the ports during the pandemic. This is one of those, and bonus points for quoting the Taft-Hartley Act, which we don't get to reference very often. But in your piece of The Hill, you actually broke this down and actually weighed in terms of where President Biden and the administration have been in terms of what they can do, where they can lean in, and what they're likely to do in this scenario.
Yeah. So first of all, President Biden has made it very clear he is not going to intervene to force an end to this strike. He said on Sunday that he was not going to invoke this thing called the Taft-Hartley Act, which is part of this 1947 law that set a lot of standards for labor practices, the National Labor Relations Board, but also put in this legal mechanism that would allow a president to ask a court to basically issue an injunction on a strike, basically an 80-day cooling off period to allow workers to go back to work while the two sides resume negotiations. And usually that's invoked in a time when that strike is going to imperil national health or safety. And since it was enacted, presidents have intervened in labor disputes using this 37 times, but it hasn't been used since 2002 when President George W. Bush intervened basically in a heated labor dispute between port workers and employers on the West Coast to basically, after a few days of striking, the employers ended up locking the workers out. And so George W. Bush basically used Taft-Hartley to get these employees back to work and for the labor negotiations to resume. Yeah. But again, President Biden has said that is a no-go. He came out and said that again today, even though a lot of business groups, including the Chamber of Commerce, have basically called on him to invoke this legal mechanism.
Yeah, and you pointed out in your piece that even if it's just a week long or so, that could create backlogs into November. Obviously, the further that goes, the more it will start impacting scarcity, which will cause prices to rise. And obviously, we're 35 days away from an election. What impact is that pressure, the political pressure, going to play on getting this thing resolved before we get to that first Tuesday of November?
Yeah, I mean, the political pressure on President Biden and Vice President Harris is a lot more in the direction of not intervening with something like Taft-Hartley. You know, President Biden has stated that he wants his legacy to be as the most pro-union president in history. Vice President Harris has gotten endorsements from a lot of the major labor unions. So they've dispatched Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su, White House National Economic Council Director Lil Brainerd. Basically, they're working to encourage both sides to come to an agreement. But from a political perspective, they don't want to be seen as intervening in a way that's going to compromise workers' ability to collectively bargain. In terms of how a prolonged shutdown might impact consumers, the experts I've spoken to don't necessarily think that some of these economic pinches are going to be felt by consumers at all if this thing only goes on for maybe a week or two. And even if it goes on a little bit longer, these effects might not be felt until the holidays, for example. And that's in part because, as I said earlier, retailers have known for a while that this strike is coming, so they have gotten shipments in early. They've diverted shipments through the West Coast. However, customers might start seeing things like fruits disappearing from the shelves, particularly bananas. So stock up on bananas now. But in the long run, it could also it affect things like vehicles, steel, computers, and actually particularly alcohol. So.
All right, so bananas and alcohol are high on the priority list if you're looking for something to stock up for the holidays. That's your tip for the day.
Exactly.
Great insight. Taylor Giorno covers business and lobbying for The Hill, co-author of The Hill's nightly business and economy newsletter. And Taylor, great insight on all of this. We'll continue to monitor it closely. We'll have you back as this continues to unfold. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's Taylor DiGiorno joining us today from The Hill. Taylor DiGiorno, of course, is part of that Hill's nightly business and economy newsletter, and I loved her insight on all of that today. We're going to go ahead and step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news. We'll come back with some more Inside Sources next on KSL News Radio.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings, or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour, Utah's Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson says the number of threats she's received since being elected Lieutenant Governor is shocking and disheartening. Here's KSL News Radio's Verl Johansson.
Henderson didn't receive a single threat during her 8 years as a Utah state senator. She told the Salt Lake Tribune that after she was elected lieutenant governor, the threats started coming in. Henderson called the threats unpatriotic before stating they're real and scary. But the scariest thing, she says, is that the people who send them think they're being patriotic.
Henderson says election officials are taking steps to make sure that they're safe, including using gloves and masks and even stocking Narcan in counties around the state. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Iran launched the first of what's believed to be multiple phases of attacks at Israel today. Israeli forces say about 180 missiles were fired toward Israel from Iran. Eric Rubin is an American who moved from Maryland to Israel with his family last year.
The sirens went off. We could hear the booms, and we were in -3 in the parking garage to be safe. So even deep underground, we were able to hear the impacts and the sirens from the missile attack.
Most of the missiles were intercepted before they could reach their targets. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing trading today, down 173 points, while the NASDAQ was down 278, about 1.5%. The S&P 500 was down 53. And coming up, it looks like we're going to see a warm daytime, but cool overnight temperatures. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the 9s, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Hi, Doug Wright here with one more little experiment you can do at home. In a pan of water, all you have to do is stir in limestone, calcium, magnesium particles, and then heat that whole mess up on the stove. And you know what, on second thought, not such a good idea, because limestone, calcium, and magnesium particles heated in water will clump and stick to your pan like concrete, which incidentally is exactly what's going on inside your water heater. Think about it, limestone, calcium, magnesium, that's what makes hard water hard. And trust me on this, if you live in northern Utah, your home has hard water. So call Connecticut of Utah. I'll give you the number in a moment. They'll test your water's hardness for free, and they'll show you the patented design features that make Connecticut water softeners work better than any other. Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. To learn more, call Connecticut. It's 801-576-8600 or log on to softwaterutah.com. And call now while it's on your mind.
My wife and I always loved doing everything together. Jiu-jitsu, kayaking, and intimacy was always on point. It was around my early 30s when I noticed a downward trend. Watching a lot of TV, putting on weight, and just full of self-doubt. I had tried another men's clinic with disappointing results. It's the personalized treatment I received at Revive Men's Health that has been the complete game changer for me. I've got my energy and motivation back, I'm feeling stronger than I did in my 20s, and it made me a much better husband to my wife.
I'm Eric Ramos, healthcare provider at Revive Men's Health. If you are always feeling tired or moody, have a difficult time sleeping, or decreased libido, you may be suffering from low testosterone.
Book your free T-check and exam at Revive Men's Health, Salt Lake City. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
The Management Minute is a service of the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. I'm Professor Scott Hammond. A few years back, I had the privilege of being invited to High Table at one of the colleges at Oxford University in England. High Table is like the banquet you see in the movies, minus the ghosts floating overhead. Yes, this professor from Utah State University got to march into a hall as robed students stood in respect, then sat at a high table in front of distinguished scholars. It's not hard to be in awe. As we sat, the robed headmaster said, "It doesn't matter who you sit next to. Everyone at this table is interesting." Everyone was interesting, but not more so than my brilliant colleagues at the Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. Universities are places of light and knowledge that change us. If you're ready for that change, try an MBA at Utah State University. Go to utahstatemba.com. I'm Scott Hammond. Hope to see you in one of our classes.
We're still looking at emergency traffic now, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Michelle Rowe.
Well, we still have existing delays due to northbound I-15 where we had that earlier crash in Draper. That's going to span between 146 South and Draper up to about 90th South. But the new situation that's emergency traffic, this is southbound I-215's westbound. We have a scanner chatter of a wrong-way vehicle that hit the barrier. This, again, is off to the left as you're headed southbound at about 4100 South. Traffic backed up to the 201 freeway. Struggling with vision loss? The Utah State Library and Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired can help. Enjoy a free event October 10th from 9 to 2 at 250 North, 1950 West in Salt Lake. I'm Michelle Rowe in the KSL Traffic Center.
Look for warm daytime temperatures for the rest of the week, with lows dropping into the 50s overnight. Right now, 77 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson
On Utah's home
for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As the 2024 presidential election looms, the political world's grappling with shifting voter engagement and growing disillusionment. From seasoned voters losing faith in the system to young adults questioning their role in civil society, all of this brings light to the nation's political turbulence during this season. It's becoming more apparent that those who are disengaging in politics are those who might make the biggest difference in the end. Natalia Galitsa specializes in long-form features and explanatory journalism as a staff writer for Deseret Magazine, has a great piece on the 2024 presidential election and how it might actually hinge on the non-voters. Natalia, welcome to the show. Oh, did we get you? There we go. Do we have you?
Hi.
There we are. Welcome to the show, and great piece at Deseret. And give us a little sense in terms of your reporting here, in terms of why is it that people are becoming disengaged, and how is it that the non-voter could be the most important voter in November?
Yeah, of course. So when we look at non-voters, people who feel disillusioned or disengaged in politics, we're actually looking at a surprisingly large number of the electorate. This was the case even last presidential election in 2020, and despite the fact that it showed the highest national voter turnout in modern history, still about a third of eligible voters didn't participate at all. So it makes up a very sizable chunk of the people who could have a say in determining the next presidential administration. And when we look at the reasons why, really tends to vary from voter to voter, but some of the standouts seem to be, especially among young adults, they may feel that they're not properly engaged or informed, or that they don't have enough confidence basically to make that kind of decision, maybe due to a lack of civic education. But also polarization is playing a really big factor. So people are worried about things like election security and just, losing friends and family over who they would or could vote for if given the chance.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. And one of the things you pointed out in your piece is as you look at those non-voters, some of them are, as you said, doing it because they're exhausted, they're exasperated with the polarization of it all. Some have just kind of lost hope and confidence in the process. What do we know in terms of kind of the long term for these non-voters? Once you're a non-voter, do you kind of stay in a more apathetic space or a cynical space? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I mean, experts normally tend to put non-voters in a couple different camps. There are those who certainly stick with it, who have a history of not voting and are not concerned with the candidate or the specific race, just choose to opt out of the process altogether. However, there are also those who maybe just feel distant from the current election cycle or the current slate of candidates. So there is hope for a lot of non-voters across the country in terms of, changing their minds if they feel that politicians or policies might better align with their identities and values. So that's at least heartening to think about when we think about the state of non-voters in the U.S.
Yeah, I know you did a specific deep dive on those in Arizona, obviously a swing state. And so often when we talk about swing voters or undecided voters, it's very much in the tug and pull of, are they purple, are they red, are they blue, are they swinging back and forth? And nobody's really talking about the potential non-voters in Arizona and the impact they could ultimately have on the race.
Right, yeah, and Arizona is incredibly interesting in terms of a case study because of the current swing states we have right now that are very close to call and pretty much up for grabs. It's the most consequential in the West. I mean, the only other Western swing state right now is Nevada, and Arizona has almost double the electoral votes. So it's going to play a much heavier hand in determining the next president. And even when we look back at 2020, the last presidential election, Arizona was one of about 6 swing states who also had incredibly close margins. I mean, Biden cinched the state by nearly 10,000 votes. So it's really an exercise in showing how every vote and non-vote really does matter.
Yeah, it does. And they all send messages that are crucially important. As you did this deep dive, Natalia, and it's a great piece. You should check this out at Deseret.com. Anything surprise you or any kind of takeaways of like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way that kind of caught you as you were getting into the middle of the non-voters?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thank you. One thing that really stuck out to me was kind of that initial point of just how many people across the country don't vote, and not even just in a particular election, but in general. I mean, anywhere from 35 to 60% of Americans choose not to vote in any given election. So even though there isn't as much research or understanding of the non-voter compared to the prospective or active voter, they make up a huge part of our population, a huge part of our country, and are going kind of largely unexplored or under-discussed, which is kind of a shock.
Yeah, that is definitely a think again moment right there, to be sure. Natalia, great piece, a great insight. Thanks so much for joining us today. And again, you can check out Natalia's piece at Deseret.com. Natalia, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Really important conversation there with Natalia Galica. She specializes in long-form features, explanatory journalism as a staff writer for Deseret Magazine. And I think this is so interesting, looking at the non-voter. We focus so much on the swing voters and the undecided voters. There's also the non-voters. It's a big, big number. And a lot of them are either exhausted and exasperated with what the current options look like or feel like, or they've just decided it doesn't matter anymore. They've become disillusioned with the process. They have no confidence that their vote will matter or make a difference. And yet, as we know, this will be a very close election, regardless of where you're leaning or where you think you might cast your vote. Every vote does matter. And the non-voter vote is the real bonus. It's very difficult to sway somebody who's a Democrat. I don't see a lot of them suddenly shifting over and say, you know what, I'm going to vote for former President Trump. And I don't see a lot of the Trump base supporters. I don't see any of the former president's base suddenly saying, you know what, I've changed my mind. I'm gonna jump over and I'm gonna vote with Vice President Harris. But there's a whole lot of people who are non-voters, way more than there are undecided voters or uncommitted voters or unaffiliated voters. The non-voters are the biggest number. And so that's an interesting thing to think again about, of who's talking to them. Who is it that's going to go out and make the case to the non-voter to say, you know what, your vote does matter. Your voice does count and makes a difference and can make a huge difference in a very tightly contested race. And that's an interesting discussion to get to. I'm not sure that either of the vice president candidates will be talking to the non-voters tonight. But that's an interesting thing that we've got to get to, and we may explore that just a little bit more tomorrow. But very grateful to Natalia Galitsa from Deseret Magazine raising that, because it will make a difference. And I would remind everyone that if you are in that category of you're not quite aligned yet, or you don't feel like you have a candidate in either the Republican nominee or the Democratic nominee, there are other choices, including writing someone in. And you can say, well, that's a wasted vote. No, there are no wasted votes, because every vote is a trade-off. And so you go through the process, and you may prioritize one set of policies over another. You may set a high standard for certain character traits over others. Those are all things that you can evaluate. But the most important thing we do with our votes is a chance to express ourselves. And you can express yourself by voting for political party candidates or not. And if you write somebody's name in or you vote for a third-party candidate, you are expressing yourself. And that is the most important thing, is that we express our values and what we believe and what we think is important. And especially as it relates to these non-voters that Natalia has introduced us to today, if we're going to get them to participate, which we all should hope they do, because we all need to participate in the process, but many have given up and have either become apathetic or cynical or just hopeless. And so we should give them a reason to hope. We should give them a reason to say, you know what, I haven't voted in the last few elections. I'm going to vote this time, and I'm going to be an educated voter, and I'm going to express my values with my vote. And whether that means voting for someone who's on the ticket or writing in somebody who's not, all of that matters. All of that makes a difference, because all of us together have to raise the voice that determines the future of the country. All right, we'll step aside for one last break. We'll come back with some final thoughts on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Mountain America Expo Center, Sandy. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
My body is unique. I'm not okay with using drugs for weight loss.
Dieting really hasn't worked for me.
These fad diets have hurt people that I care about.
I'm Dr. Jack Thomas with Skinny Utah. Since 2016, Skinny Utah has offered effective weight loss without the shots, prepackaged meals, hormones, or shakes. So many of us are troubled by the serious side effects of lose weight fast fads and are looking for answers as to why our bodies hold on to weight where other bodies don't. The answer is actually simple. Each body is different. At Skinny Utah, we use technology to learn why your specific body holds on to weight, which foods your body can use best, and which ones to stay away from so your weight loss can be sustainable. Right now, Skinny Utah is offering $700 off, something we have never done before. Take your health and weight loss journey seriously and safely. Schedule your free weight loss strategy session at skinnyutah.com.
I did it. Safely.
Successfully.
At skinnyutah.com.
With Skinny Utah, you have nothing to lose but the weight.
Did you know that your largest investment asset might not be your retirement account or home? I'm Jay Jackson, CEO of Abacus Life. Most people don't realize that their life insurance policy is actually an asset they can sell. But for almost 20 years, Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you. We've even created a free policy value calculator at abacuspays.com so you can find out in seconds what we might pay for your policy. There are no fees and no obligations, just information. Knowing the value of your life insurance policy is as important as knowing the value of your home, your equity portfolio, or your finances in total. Discover the valuable information you need to understand the current market value for your life insurance, and then get real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus. Visit abacuspays.com to learn more and use our free policy value calculator today.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Saline from Vicks.
Sinex Saline nasal spray?
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Saline instantly clears everyday congestion associated with colds and year-round allergies with a gentle, ultra-fine mist that's no mess and easy to control.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Enjoy life's important moments without congestion. Try Sinex Saline from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Celebrate Taco Tuesday the tasty way at Cafe Rio. Handmade tortillas bring the vibes. Slow braised meats bring the punch. And 12 tasty toppings bring the party. Starting at just $2.49.
Alpine Home Medical. We bring wellness home.
This is Jay Broadbent from Alpine Home Medical. I'm excited to let you know we're currently having a sale on power scooters. As we celebrate the spirit of freedom and independence, we want to make sure you have the chance to experience it. We have a wide range of power scooters designed to enhance your mobility, and they're all available at a discounted price. These special offers only come around every couple of years, and once they're gone, they're gone. Come visit us at any of our 11 locations to take advantage of these fantastic deals, or you can browse our selection of discounted scooters on our website. We're committed to providing the 5-star experience. We can't wait to assist you in finding the perfect power scooter. Visit us online at alpinehomemedical.com. That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Get ready for the spooky season by eliminating all of the spooky dirt, grime, and spills. Halloween brings out the best in people, but also the scariest dirt from all the foot traffic. Carpets, tiles, rugs, upholstery, basically every surface in your home can be zero resified. Right now, you can get your entire home zero resified and get 3 rooms of carpet cleaning starting out at only $109 and take 20% off your air duct cleaning. Don't let a misdeal haunt you. Schedule at zerores.com or call 801-288-9376 and ask for this special.
In 2024, dating is a disaster. We've been ghosted, breadcrumbed, stuck in situationships. Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm Caitlin. Welcome to our new podcast, Dating at Her Age. Dating has been so dicey for us, so we asked KSL, can we launch an all-new podcast about it?
People use these dating apps. You're not really dating when you're on the dating app.
Dating at Her Age. Brought to you by Mountain Home Services. A new episode drops every Thursday on KSLNewsRadio.com.
Dave and Debbie.
It's impossible to digest and consume all of the news that's now coming at us through either social media or through web pages or through the radio. Pick what is most impactful in your life and focus on that. And that's what Dave and I do every single morning. We pick those issues that are most important to our listeners and we boil it down so it's digestible. It's simple to understand.
I think we're trying to find the essence of the story. You know, you can't be an expert on all things, but that doesn't mean you can't be curious and really find out more and educate yourself and learn the complexities of an issue. But I think all of us start at ground zero on everything. Ask questions, show that curiosity.
And then if you need more research, you can always go to KSLNewsRadio.com and learn more.
Listen for Dave and Dejanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Utah's Lieutenant Governor says she's received many threats over her handling of elections in the state from people who apparently thought they were doing the right thing. Second, today's missile attack by Iran against targets in Israel may not have caused much damage, but Israel thinks more may be on the way. And third, Mexico swore in its first female president today. Claudia Sheinbaum called La Presidenta. Right now, 77 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program today, of course, a lot of breaking news that we've been covering, particularly out of the Middle East. And we will continue to have you covered here on KSL News Radio throughout the afternoon, overnight, and into tomorrow. This is one that will continue to go. We know that Benjamin Netanyahu released a statement just in the last little bit saying that Iran made a big mistake. And I really think this is not the end. I think it's just the beginning of more things to come. There were some interesting things that we learned as we went throughout the day today. And, of course, we'll also have coverage for you coming up to two debates tonight, back-to-back debates. We'll have the Attorney General debate here on KSL. That'll start at 6 p.m. here for the state of Utah. And then, of course, we'll go to the big vice presidential debate on the national level. That will start at 7 p.m. And, as always, we have you covered. But I want to stick with this, some of the things that we learned today. It was really interesting. As we started our show, we had retired Lieutenant General Richard Newton join us on the program. He is from News Nation, and he reminded us of, I think, some pretty interesting things as it relates to what's been happening over the past year, since October the 7th. Amazing, we're coming up on 1 year from that horrific attack on Israel and innocent Israelis, the numbers that were killed, those that are still being held hostage. But we also know that over the course of the last year, there's been over 11,000 missiles launched from Lebanon into northern Israel in particular. Of course, we had the larger barrage coming from Iran back in April of this year. And then, of course, just over the course of the day today, about 200 of those ballistic missiles fired from Iran towards Israel. And it appears between the Iron Dome, the U.S. Was firing off of destroyers, took down some of those missiles as a deterrent. And that to this point, we have not heard of any deaths as a result of those attacks from Iran. So that was an interesting thing and an important perspective piece, I think, for all of us, is to recognize what has been going on. I want to just leave you with a couple things that we need to be watching and looking towards moving forward. I think one of the things that has been vastly underreported or talked about today is the connection between Iran, Russia, and China. That's a very interesting axis of power, and it's one that has been strengthening over the course of the last year, of course, with Vladimir Putin waging war and invading Ukraine, and as that battle continues to be a grind, and then as China continues to empower both Iran and Russia, both with assets as well as intelligence. There's a host of things that, to me, are worrisome that I don't think we're talking nearly enough about. Then the other piece that we got to today that I thought was really telling, we always look to Elaine McCusker from American Enterprise Institute, who looks at what's going on in the military, but looks at it from the budget process. And, of course, we talked a lot over the last month during the course of September about Congress not doing their job, funding the government, and funding the Department of Defense, defunding our military. That military funding is so important. And when it gets pushed off, when it gets wrapped up in a continuing resolution, we all cheer that there's no shutdown, which is a good thing. But there's a lot of things that don't happen that hamper and hinder our military women and men and their ability to provide security for our country, as well as being an important resource for our allies around the world. And when we don't do that, when we do these things called continuing resolutions, we kick the can down the road, it means funding continues at the current levels. So if we need something new, you can't just go start that program. If we need to upgrade something, you can't just go do that because it hasn't been funded. So there's a lot of downstream ramifications. We'll talk more about that tomorrow as well. As I said, stay tuned for a double debate tonight, the Utah Attorney General debate, as well as the Vice Presidential debate here on KSL News Radio. That wraps it up for us today. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Boyd Matheson. And as always, as you go out into the world, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon, 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan, 77 degrees, KSL's top story. The Salt Lake City Council votes tonight on a citywide sales tax hike, the money to help pay for the downtown entertainment district. We have team coverage on what's expected tonight and how we got here. Let's begin with KSL News Radio's Hugo Ricard-Bell.
A vote in favour would mean an updated Delta Centre that could house both the Utah Jazz and the Utah Hockey Club. One member of the council, Victoria Petros, says this is about more than just making sure the UHC stays in Salt Lake City.
For us, adding NHL hasn't been as high a priority as keeping the Jazz.
Smith Entertainment Group hasn't said what would happen if the vote is no, but Petros says she's not taking that chance.
I have done endless hours of work on this, so at this point I am decided. I will be voting in favor.
Should the proposal get the all clear, the sale tax in Salt Lake City would rise by 0.5%. Hugo Ricard-Bell, KSL News Radio.
So how much is 0.5%? On a $10 lunch, it's an extra 5 cents. On $100 worth of groceries, it's 50 cents if you buy a $2,000 couch.